A4Q AI Portfolio brings together 3 certifications, each designed to strengthen your understanding of AI from a different perspective. You can start with A4Q AI Essentials to gain a clear understanding of how AI works and how to apply it ethically and effectively. Explore A4Q AI Foundation to deepen your knowledge of AI methods, risk awareness and quality assurance, bridging the gap between innovation and responsibility. And finally, the new A4Q Certified Professional for AI Compliance, a specialized program focused on the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. Here, you'll explore risk classification, governance, conformity assessment, and post-market monitoring, all the key elements organizations need to stay compliant in the new regulatory era. Explore the A4Q AI portfolio and take your next step toward AI you can trust.
Hello and welcome again to another session in the A4Q Summit. It's been a fantastic day already, but I know we've got some really great sessions to move on with for the rest of this day too. I'm very privileged to have with me at the moment Romina Pierce. Hi, Romina.
Hi, everyone.
Romina, I'll just give you a very quick introduction because I know I'm very, very keen to hear your presentation, seeing that she's incredibly close to my heart. Romina, you're head of operations for Sixsentix, constantly specializing in software quality, test design and automation. I know you've got an MBA in compliance, data protection and IT, and a personal background shaped by DEI experience. And I know you're going to tell everyone what DEI stands for in a moment. I'm really going to pass on to you to finish introducing yourself and also to get straight into the content. Just a quick reminder to people that we will have recordings of these sessions because I know there's stuff that people want to go back and look at. We also have a little presentation at the end of the event for the best presentation. So if you do want to vote for Romina, then please remember to go to her profile on the A4Q website. We'll share some details with you on that. Romina, I'm going to get off stage and hand over to you, and then we're going to come back and have some questions. And everybody sit back and enjoy. I know this is going to be good. Thank you, Romina.
Thank you so much, Debbie. So yeah, again, hi, everyone. Great to be here. As you heard it now multiple times, my name is Romina Pierce, and I'm head of operation at Sixsentix. Today, I want to talk about something that often seems to be a people topic, DEI. We already heard it. It stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. For me, this is also personal. Coming from a different or a diverse background and not always fitting the default, I've experienced how easily perspectives can be overlooked myself. And the same happens in the systems we test. In reality, this topic has become a quality topic, and I will guide you a little bit through why I say so. So in our work in QA, so quality assurance, we test systems that are already being built and deployed in the market. Those systems could be applications or platforms. They are increasingly AI enabled, and we see that very often these systems are becoming more complex and dynamic, and they very often already combine AI and decision making. And if I shall give you, or just think of the famous AI-powered recruiting platforms, for example, I'm sure most of you have heard of them. It becomes highlighted that AI collaborate or that AI actually is combined with decision making. And that's exactly the point where we stepped back and we realized if the systems that we test are becoming increasingly dynamic and more complex, then our testing approach also needs to evolve. So we set out to rethink. And when we built our new offering, we asked ourselves, how do we rethink testing for this new reality? What does that look like? Yeah. And that's where agentic testing comes in. Moving away from static manual-heavy testing towards something more continuous and adaptive. You see, traditional testing, most of you know, is very static. Agentic testing, on the other hand, is quite the opposite. It's continuous, adaptive, and most importantly, it's scalable. So at the moment, we thought, hooray, we have solved the scalability problem. So let me quickly show you how this first looked in practice. In our agentic setup, agents would generate, execute, and optimize. So they would generate scenarios, execute tests, and continuously optimize based on what they learn. And we, so the QA or the human in this loop, we don't disappear, of course. We guide, validate, and intervene when and where necessary. So at first glance, this looks like a very robust model. I think most of you would agree. You see, the loop we just saw, however, relies on one critical assumption. Because the agents learn from the data that they are exposed to, the scenarios they are designed to operate in, and the feedback they receive over time, which means, quite simply put, they only see what people, so what all of us, what we show them. And that's the point where responsibility starts shifting. It shifts away from the system alone, back to how we design, select, and validate what goes into it. And at that point, something fundamental became clear to us. And I'm sure to all of you now that I show you, bias is not being removed, it's being automated. Missing perspectives turn into missing coverage. Automation accelerates propagation. And as if that wasn't bad enough, AI makes these effects significantly harder to detect. So what we increasingly see across systems is this. Blind spots, they don't disappear, they scale. And that leads to a critical question. What is QA not seeing? Now, this might still sound a bit abstract. So let me quickly show you what that could look like in practice. We have prepared a little clip for you.
So the model uses 38 variables. For this profile, single, no children, household of one, female, the algorithm flags low stability and recommends denial.
So just to be clear, we are denying a loan to someone because she's a single woman living alone.
Well, those factors correlate with the default risk in the training data. The model is statistically optimized. We didn't hard code any of that.
Beautiful. Bias at scale. Someone's getting fired for this.
Well, technically, the AI isn't on the payroll.
GenAI doesn't just reflect bias. it amplifies it. Sixsentix tests GenAI for unfair outcomes to meet legal and ethical standards. We ensure your GenAI is compliant, reliable, and governed, powered by Sixsentix testing excellence.
So the clip you just saw comes from a different offering. Obviously, I think you called that, but I thought it fitted quite nicely into making it more visible to you what I meant previously. So we went one step further with what we came up with the agentic testing or the agentic business model than just to test GenAI. And so as I said, with the agentic approach, we move beyond this. And yeah, that brings me to my next slide. As the clip suggests, if you look more closely at the systems, one thing becomes visible. What often might just seem to be missing data, it's much more than just missing data. It's actually missing perspective. And this is where diversity becomes relevant, right? But diversity is obviously not just one-dimensional. And I would argue that most of us are not one-dimensional beings. As we see, this diversity wheel suggests that we have different components of diversity, each one of us. So yeah, what you see here in the diversity wheel, and just to clarify, the colors in this wheel are not the point. So don't get hung up by them. They are not meant to categorize people or create labels. What this model actually highlights are different layers of influence. So the inner dimensions are the diversity dimensions that are much more permanent. So those are dimensions that are not easily exchangeable or influenced. Those are dimensions such as age, gender, ethical background, aka race, and so sexual orientations and others, among others. And then the outer layer, those are dimensions like appearance, education, language, and those are usually shaped by our environment and context and are easier exchangeable, or we should say less permanent than the inner layer. So that's how we read this diversity wheel. And the key point is that these dimensions don't exist in isolation. Quite the opposite. They overlap and interact. This is what is referred to as intersectionality. So let's look at what happens when these dimensions come together, or I should say some of these dimensions come together, and how systems actually respond to that. So I have two examples that I wanted to present you. So to pick up on the example from the clip previously, such as financial scoring models. Right. So if we would now have a young migrant with irregular income, let's say, they fall through the cracks, right? The system often disadvantages that individual. And that's not because of behavior or anything they did. It's simply because the data does not reflect their reality. Or if we move to a different example, let's say voice-based AI systems, we know that they often perform less reliable for accents or non-native speakers. Now combine an accent with reduced volume of speech, for example, due to a physical condition, and the impact is no longer just additive, it becomes amplified. And that leads to a simple but important point, right? If these combinations are not tested, they are not covered. Simple as that. So when you think about your own systems, which combinations are currently not being tested? Which perspectives are you not covering? I leave you with that question when you leave here today. So yeah, DEI is now more than ever a technical necessity and no longer just a people topic or a nice to have HR initiative. It's not something that we can switch on or off depending on who is in charge. And it actually defines what gets tested, what is normal, and who is visible. The same system with the same logic and the same test can still produce very different outcomes depending on who is using it. It might work perfectly for some users and constantly fail for others, not because the system is broken, but because certain perspectives were not considered. So the real question is not just, does it work? But it shifted from does it work to for whom does it work reliably? And that brings me to the next point, the human in the loop. But I think you heard this phrase quite a bit when talking about AI and agentic models. However, the human in the loop is not enough. Now at this point, a common reaction often is, that's fine, we have a human in the loop, right? And yes, that's important. And actually, it's not optional, at least in the European Union, it's not. It's actually required. If we look at the EU AI Act, as a matter of fact, if we look at Article 14, it clearly says that high-risk AI systems need to allow for effective human oversight. But here's the key point. Having a human in the loop, and that's why I said it's not enough, it's not the same as having effective oversight. So, because humans don't automatically remove bias, we all operate with our own assumptions, our own experiences, and our own perspectives, which, as I mentioned previously, leads to the agent learning, just basically copying our bias. And what you often see in practice is that human oversight becomes either a bottleneck or just a formality, considering what the system suggests instead of truly challenging it. And I mean, we probably know it from ourselves, like when we, even something as simple as like using ChatGPT on our daily basis. If I ask ChatGPT, give me a recipe for original tiramisu, for example, I don't question the recipe, right? I will just happily confirm what ChatGPT suggested to me, and I'm just putting it out there as an example. And that's actually where the real gap sits. So instead of relying on a single human in the loop, what we see emerging as a more effective approach is a structured team setup. So a team that is continuously involved, not just reviewing outcomes, but actively guiding and challenging the system. So this is not passive oversight, it's continuous interaction. People continuously validating results, intervening when and where necessary, and helping improve the system behave over time. And importantly, the system is not just optimizing on its own. We are also introducing structured monitoring, so such as AI quality metrics. So that means tracking AI quality through the making performance visible and identifying where the system drifts and where blind spots remain. Because AI, and if it scales, and that's what AI does, it scales, oversight also needs to scale. Not as a checkpoint, but as a real capability. So this is how we ensure that our agents consider different perspectives, and they are reducing their bias. So to my title, to tie it together, testing beyond the majority means expanding our perspective and actively including different realities in our test coverage. Because what we often call edge cases are actually real users. And if we don't include them, we're not testing reality. And that required us to rethink what we mean by quality. And quality for us is no longer just about functional correctness, but it's about how much real world diversity do we cover. So the more perspectives and context we include, the more reliable our systems, so your systems, become. So quality becomes essentially coverage of reality. And actually, this is where it all comes together. So DEI is not separate from engineering. It directly impacts quality, risk, and ultimately business outcomes. Because if a system fails for a certain group of users, that's not an edge case. And let's be honest, that's a defect. So if I bring this full circle, if we scale testing without diversity, we are not scaling quality, we are scaling blind spots. Scaling systems is easy, scaling perspective, not so much. And if the perspective is missing, the system may still work, just not for everyone. So if there's one takeaway I would like to leave you with before I say thank you and I'm happy to connect, is this: as we scale testing, we must effective, because testing beyond the majority, it's not about fairness, it's about building systems that actually work. So yeah, happy to connect. Thank you for your attention. And yeah, back to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Romina. A lot of food for thought there. I think you've really highlighted how blind spots in the data assumption perspectives can become a real risk in GenAI, and why DEI needs to be treated as a core part of testing, not an add-on. That in mind, let's see what questions we've got. Isn't this focus on diversity in testing over-engineering the process? At the end of the day, most users have behaved similarly. Do we really need all of this complexity? That's a really great question.
So yeah, I understand why it can feel that way, but the assumption that most users behave similarly is exactly where the risk lies, right? Because systems don't fail on the majority, they fail for the minority. Or as I like to put it, they fail in the gaps. And those gaps are often not edge cases, as I said in my presentation or in my little speech, but simply perspective that were never considered. So this isn't about adding complexity for the sake of it. It's about making sure we're testing what actually exists in reality. And in practice, with an agent-based approach, we can explore that diversity more effectively than in traditional testing.
I think you showed that really well in your presentation, Romina, also. Let's have another question. You mentioned human oversight in the AI Act. What do you think companies are still getting wrong here?
So, yeah, I think many organizations interpret human oversight as having someone review results, because it invites for that conclusion. But the EU AI Act actually requires meaningful oversight, meaning the human must be able to understand, challenge, and intervene. And that's where many setups fall short, I'd say, because if the human doesn't have the right perspective or context or knowledge, they won't catch what's missing, right? Or what the system missed, basically. So yeah, oversight is not just about having a human physically present, it's about having the right.
Let's have another question. Your message is clear, but many organizations are under pressure to deliver fast. How can they realistically integrate diverse perspectives into testing without slowing everything down?
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's a very real concern. And honestly, we ask ourselves the same question, right? What we've learned, I'd say, is that it's not about adding more effort. It's about being more intentional with what it is that you're already doing. Instead of testing more, we test smarter by consciously expanding scenarios, for instance, or involving different perspectives earlier, and using our agents to simulate variations at scale. So in practice, it actually makes testing more efficient, and not less, because you identify gaps earlier before they become expensive problems.
Thank you. Thank you. Romina, lots of good stuff there. I'm sure people want to go back and go through your presentation. That will be available through A4Q. Reminder, please vote for Romina, best presentation of the session. I think you can see a QR code there. That'd be fantastic. And thank you to Romina and to everybody who's tuned in. I hope you can stay for the rest of the A4Q Summit today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The A4Q AI portfolio brings together 3 certifications, each designed to strengthen your understanding of AI from a different perspective. You can start with A4Q AI Essentials to gain a clear understanding of how AI works and how to apply it ethically and effectively. Explore A4Q AI Foundation to deepen your knowledge of AI methods, risk awareness, and quality assurance, bridging the gap between innovation and responsibility. And finally, the new A4Q Certified Professional for AI Compliance, a specialized program focused on the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. Here, you'll explore risk classification, governance, conformity assessment, and post-market monitoring, all the key elements organizations need to stay compliant in the new regulatory era. Explore the A4Q AI portfolio and take your next step toward AI you